Suppose, Lord Russell, this film were to be looked at by our descendants, like a Dead Sea Scroll in 1,000 years' time. What would you think it's worth telling that generation?
Mind spins in spirals like the cogito. I think, therefore, but do I even know? Hume said the sun might not rise in the morning. Patterns ain't proof, just habits we adorn. Russell's teapot floating out in the void. Invisible doubts that can't be destroyed. Belief ain't a bird and the skeptic employs. Question the noise, the cosmos ploys. Skeptic's eyes always peeping the fraud. Truth ain't handed down, it's wrestled from the gods. Doubts my temple, my faith is flawed. Think it through twice before I applaud. Induction wobbles like a table with no leg. Hume's knife cuts leave certainty begging. A billion white swans, burn black renegade. Shatter the mirror, the cracks cascade. Cogito feels strong, but is it really? Thoughts build castles, clouds act silly. Russell's pot spins in the ether so freely. Prove it exists or the claim's too dreamy. Am I the dreamer or the dream in the show? The car wrestled devils, still didn't know. Faith and senses, they play tricks on a low. Truth's a mirage in a desert of woe.
When you are studying any matter or considering any philosophy, ask yourself only what are the facts and what is the truth that the facts bear out. Never let yourself be diverted either by what you wish to believe or by what you think could have beneficent social effects if it were believed. But look only and solely at what are the facts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Skeptic Philosophy. I am your host, as always, and today we have a special guest on that many of you hopefully have seen before. If not, this is Skeptic Lou. Pull him on into the stage here. Lou's, how's it going, man?
Hi, Robert. Glad to see you today, and
you too.
Very happy to be on with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you coming on. Generally, when I have guests on, we always let them pick the subject, and you picked misinformation. I kind of assumed that it was misinformation specifically about like religious misinformation, but I guess it could have been in a broader sense about any kind of misinformation and just the tactics of misinformation and why misinformation happens. I think obviously the primary reason that misinformation happens is because people have a goal that they're trying to acquire, and it requires other people to think a certain thing is true. Is that your take on the misinformation as far as the driver, or what?
Well, I actually think misinformation is a very right now issue, in our country and in the world, because our world and our country is very much influenced by misinformation. So it's actually, for me, a very important subject. All right. Yeah. And I think that misinformation is obviously prevalent in religion. There's, religion, even ancient religion, was in a time when, information spread by word of mouth, that sort of stuff. But today, it's all about speed, getting information out there in a hurry. And I feel that misinformation actually is kind of a form of brainwashing. And I do think it's done on purpose. Not all the time. Sometimes, right, we have misinformation that's just an accident,
Yeah,
somebody says something and it spreads. But a lot of it, I think, is on purpose, and it's being driven by groups of people, political people, and it's a very dangerous thing because it misleads us.
Yeah, it's all narrative driving, it seems like, for me. I remember reading an old article about a biologist that was working with monkeys, and I'm trying to think of the type of monkey, but they were talking about the monkey she's observing the monkey observing other monkeys. And what happens is the monkey that is watching them from a tree limb is watching the other monkeys and sees one bury something. They take a treat, some kind of, and they bury it. And then I think it's like a lemur monkey. I can't remember the name of the damn species, but it gives out this cry that's like a hoot that there's a predator in the area. And then all the monkeys jump up and they get off the ground. And then that one monkey goes down there and unburies what was buried, right? So what's happened is it's given a false signal because it knows that it's going to create a certain reaction, and that reaction is going to be beneficial to it. It can jump down there and take that crap while everybody's in a panic, right? And it seems like this is kind of one of our oldest connotations of misinformation. Like, we can imagine this happening millions of years ago, that they understand the flow of information, and they understand that they're communicating information, and that they can communicate something that's not true, and they gain an advantage from that just by the nature of the information. And now that has graduated all the way into religion, into politics, into everything now.
Yeah, definitely. In my years, I like to speak from experience, right? Because I feel like I'm getting up in age, and I'm getting to a point where I could look back and contemplate on all the things I'm observing. And I never seen misinformation being so prominent as it is today. It's like I literally, was just driving in the car with my girlfriend, and we were talking about something, a particular thing that's going on in Los Angeles. All right. And I had to stop and actually research whether this was true or not. Yeah. And it turns out like an element of it was true, but another part wasn't true. And even when we get partial truths, it seems to also impact us.
Yeah. Those are the easier pills to swallow, right? You can swallow a really huge lie if you lubricate it with a few little truths about it, right? But I want to make this distinction when we're talking about that we're seeing more lies and more misinformation in present age. We're specifically talking about inside of American politics.
Yeah.
I mean, in a lot of different domains, whether it's religion or whatever, we've seen this kind of tactic of misinformation kind of go unchallenged for years. What seems to be happening now is in the political apparatus, there's these alternative realities, right?
Yes.
You have these information output sources that are unchallenged. Many of them are happening on the social media platforms. They have no accountability whatsoever. We don't even know who some of them are that are coming up with the information. And then that information gets taken and it gets, disseminated everywhere from something of a credible source, but they can't even, we didn't come up with this information. We got this from so-and-so, but then that source kind of trails off into uncharted territory where they can't be held accountable or anything. So this is the problem we're running into present in the political apparatus. But it used to be the case that politics and religion were not a separate thing. We kind of divided them in early America and said, we put that wall down and said, look, politics over here, religion over here. And it seems like politics pretty much very accountable and fairly honest, for the most part. And now it seems like that wall between what religious ideology is and what political ideology is, and even the way that they behave, that the wall's coming down and they're blended back together.
Yeah. And the thing I'm seeing in America that's very different, we have this separation of church and state. I mean, that's part of what we believe as Americans, considering
Hopefully.
our documents that we're supposed to go by, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, if you're, let's say, a particular religion, you can't separate that from yourself. It's part of who you are. So that's gonna come out when you vote, because you're gonna vote on things that align with your values, et cetera, et cetera. And that's okay to me. That's fine, But we're seeing an erosion of the the hard line separation of church and state. And I think that's kind of devastating, you know.
Yeah, I think so. There's something that I've noticed too that's very interesting. It's the method in which accountability erodes. It happens something like this. Someone tells a lie, a political person tells a lie. It's an obvious lie. People find out this wasn't true, this information wasn't correct. And then they write it off under the auspice of, well, the other party lies too, right?
Yeah.
So then they justify it away
Exactly.
and say, well, it's okay that this person lied. Whereas in the past, like that would have been devastating for a candidate to be caught like openly and blatantly lying. And now the tactic is to just hand wave it away with, yeah, but other candidates lied too, without being able to put a specific finger or anything like that on it. So then they justify. So now we're moving more into the realm of not only do the politicians lie blatantly and we can validate and know that it's not true, but that's totally now fine with the people that are voting on them. And that's a problem.
Yeah, totally. And that's to me a very big problem. And it's very unique and focused right now in America.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're seeing what is true and what is propaganda just being combined, where it's almost like it doesn't matter anymore. You know?
Yeah.
It's like the quest for truth and objective reality is somehow being like put aside.
Yeah.
You know, and it's dangerous. It's probably one of my most things of most concern in what I'm personally seeing, you know. I mean,
yeah, it's weird. You mentioned like that we don't think it matters, but we had this a lot with religion in the past, that like there were certain things that were being propagated that weren't true, that were almost like had a fairy tale level of thing that a large part of society just, that doesn't matter. You know, they really didn't care because that's not really encroaching on anyone else's freedom to the degree that it's not coming into politics. It's just something that's happening inside of that religious construct. And if those people want to believe that, then that's not a problem for them to believe that. And what's interesting is I think that a lot of people, they have things that they were taught like in their Sunday school and whatnot that are objectively like not true things and that are easily checkable. Like I'll give you one primary example. I remember from whenever I was younger, I thought that a man had one less rib than a female. I thought this was the case, right?
I thought that too when I was little.
Right. There you go. I'm curious how many people in chat, especially if you come up at any kind of church thing, if you thought this was the case. Because there's a lot of like little things like that in large part, like people who were better educated on the subject, they didn't care. You know, it's not as if that's affecting like political decisions or how everybody else lives their life. So the fact that someone thinks something is the case and it's completely incorrect, they weren't concerned with it. But now that kind of thing is happening in the political domain also. And people are thinking like, hey, this is what reality is. And they're completely wrong about it. And they're making electoral decisions based on that. And that's a very interesting and scary thing.
Yeah. And about the rib, just, like a funny thing. I used to, when I was really young, I used to think that, yes, there was an extra rib on a man, male. And I also was told back then that that's why we call spare ribs. You know, like there was a link there, well, there's a spare rib. And I actually used to think, yeah, that makes sense. They came up with a spare rib because of a man's extra rib, So it's crazy. It's like,
and I wanted to bring a few things up, see what you thought about it. And I'm only doing this because if you had something you wanted to talk on, but I remember from the email that you said you picked the category, but you're like, you're a lead, you can lead, you'll just have to take part in the conversation. So I did write something down to get into some of these. So one of the claims was that many of us thought when we were younger is the extra rib that a woman would have. And some are, and these are from Bible things, that the Bible says that there were 3 wise men, right? that there were, but it's actually not in the Bible. What we get is there's three gifts that were passed. Like it says wise men came, and then it talks about three gifts, and then there's this inference that there was three wise men. But if you ask the average person that hasn't read the Bible, but they fancy themselves Christians, if they haven't given it any scrutiny, any of them will tell you, yeah, there were three wise men, right? And this is not, it's not even anywhere in the literature. It's nowhere there. So there's these little things, it seems, that we have these kind of fairy tale things that were the way the version of it was told to us, but it's not reflective of something even in the literature, much less in reality, like with the rib, right? It's just something that is highly propagated.
Yeah. And one of my favorites, and when I was a believing Christian, I used to point this out to people, and that is the Adam and Eve,
Mm-hmm.
almost, it's countless numbers of people say they ate a fruit, or they ate an apple.
An apple is the most classic.
But it doesn't say an apple, right?
No, it
but
doesn't.
You always hear that,
Yeah.
Eve ate the apple, and definitely that's not what it says. It doesn't
right. Right. And there's a few of them that you can do with the Bible rather than like a physical reality, that you can just, if you just look deeper at the text, you'll see that that's been propagated, but that's nowhere in the text. And another one is that that angels have wings. Right. But when you look at like every instance of this messenger or angel-like character, you don't get wings. There's just no wings.
Yeah.
But what you get is you get an association of what they call a cherub, right, that has the wings. And then there's this association of these two characters of like the messenger, like angel, and these cherubs. And the cherubs have wings, and therefore angels have wings. But there's not a single text that suggests that angels have wings. And yet that's regularly, propagated, and that's the visual artifact of it. You get it also with demons and pitchforks, right?
Yeah,
which was more of a comedical thing that come about.
The devil with the tail, and
yeah.
There's so much of it, and I think that sort of stuff has a lot of power.
Sure,
because we put images, we have images in our minds. And this is just all human beings, it's how we process information. And when you're thinking of something like an apple, when you see an apple, in your mind, you become very easy that you repeat the same thing that's actually not factual at all.
Yeah, a lot of it's just they want to tell these things, and I actually put a link of a book in the description of the video here. This is a book that was actually written by Eusebius. So this was book 12 of the Preparation for the Gospel that was written by Eusebius. And I think this is 320 to 330, somewhere in here it was written. And I think it was, what is his name that comes on here a fair amount? Kurt, I think he's the one that mentioned in a few videos back that Eusebius kind of outright supports the idea that it's okay to lie, right? It's totally okay to lie to support the narrative of Christ. And while I don't know that Eusebius outright says that it's okay to lie, he really blends he almost does a Jordan Peterson thing about like stories and fairy tales. They're real and they should be believed, but they're not physically real. They're not actually real, but that they have something meaningful in them. And Eusebius, he goes on at length defending his ideology based on Plato from the Republic. And he suggests that we teach our children these fairy tales that aren't physically true, but it's something that is helping create their opinion about the world, right? And that it is important that we shape that. And I think he does one about one of the prophets from Maccabees. He says that the prophet was seen praying for the people. And then he suggests, well, while that might not be actually true, though it's in Maccabees, it says it, that it's important that we give it as the fairy tale, right? That it's important that we give it so that we can shape the ideology of the young, credulous minds, right? Yeah. And he's like totally fine with that. He's totally fine with telling things that are not literally true, because it's helping shape their morality, shape their everything. And at no point do you ever need to say, but this isn't actually true, right?
Right.
That's totally fine.
Yeah,
That's Eusebius.
Yes, and one of my favorites that I encountered recently, and it's because I have a very close family member who was involved in a very big mega church, and on staff and all that. And one of the things that they said over and over and over in their own staff meetings, between staff only, but it was definitely something that struck me, and that was they repeated over and over amongst themselves, perception is reality. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
that's not true, right? It's not, I mean, that's not objectively true. The perception is not reality. But that became a big part of their church culture, you know? And that, I think, is what you're hitting on in a way. It's like, if you buy that, perception is reality, then you're going to be easy on distorting what people see regarding your church or regarding even yourself, that you're not really presenting a realistic picture. You're just looking for people to perceive you in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think mega churches do that all the time. It's like their public relation, they operate as multimedia companies that have public relations. So it's like they're trying to shape the narrative of the entire community. And that's, to me, I think that's a form of brainwashing or mind control,
Well, there's this, and it seems like two different types of misinformations to separate, because there's ideals and there's ideals in Hebrews, and you see it a little bit in the Old Testament. I'm trying to think where it's at, where it says that he spoke things that were not as though they were. And I think it was talking about Elijah, if I'm not mistaken. But we see this in Hebrews 11, where it says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And you combine this with he spoke things that were not as though they were. And it's like, oh, you're speaking it into existence, right?
Yeah.
By the very virtue of you believing that this is so, that it is somehow, that it is so by virtue of you believing it. And this seems a little different than, like, if you're not holding that position and you're not saying, okay, we're wishing it into existence, but you're saying this narrative is important for our rhetorical goals, and we're promoting this narrative. That seems like two different things. I mean, both are wrong and they're both misrepresenting reality, but it seems like they have two different motivations.
Oh yeah, motivations vary for sure.
Yeah.
But I think when it's involving like religion or mega churches, or I think it's I don't know, but I think it's on purpose that they're doing this.
Yeah.
I think there's a reason, a mind behind why they're doing this. And I think it's very deceptive. I think that's deceptive to people.
Sure. And I think that it's slightly less deceptive when you're saying, like the verse that says they spoke things that they're not the case, right? As though they were, and they came to be. It's a little less deceptive because you're at least saying, we know this isn't reality, right? But if you believe it enough, it'll materialize as reality. And that's at least a little more honest, and people can assess that and say, that's just bullshit thinking. At least they can see that as that's just like A doesn't follow B, right? I mean, that's not how things work. Whereas if they don't imply that at all, and they're just like, no, this is what reality is, they're not even letting you know that they know that that's not where reality is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the that verse from Hebrews, I think, I don't know what chapter right now, but it's the faith verse where it outlines faith.
It's 11 somewhere.
All right, and
somewhere
that in and of itself is really an example of what we're talking about. It's a deceptive thing. I mean, I would say that's a deceptive verse. So,
for sure.
Because it's not accurately reflecting what is true at all. It's like
Yeah.
the perception is reality thing. It's not.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. Yeah, and some of it is that they know this. Like when you're seeing Eusebius talk about that it's okay to tell children these fairy tales because it's important that if he mentions not allowing casual fairy tales to be taught to our children, or casual. He doesn't say fairy tales. I'm trying to think fables. He doesn't want casual fables to be taught to our children, but rather that they should purposefully decide which fables are going to be taught to their children, so that it determines the opinion that they will have as an adult. Right? Is the whole goal. That he's misquoting a little bit from Plato's Republic, but some of it's very accurate. Plato kind of held these a little very similar to these ideas, but he's justifying like everything that has been told biblically that he doesn't think are like factually the case, but that it's totally okay to tell our children these things and all, that this is complete, like, because we need to get them to a certain place. So when you have people like this that are like selecting what books of the Bible, for example, with Eusebius, he's saying, well, the Shepherd of Hermes, no, but this book, yes, as far as the canon. So a lot of it, I'm curious whether he's, picking books based off of, we think these are more, closer to what he considers the apostles, or whether he's just saying that doesn't align with the fable of which I want to shape our children, so therefore I cut that one out. And now he's just building like fable layers to come to a certain narrative and conclusion, right?
And the other thing that really strikes me is the way the human mind works, right? I did years ago, I started studying psychology and some of the ways that our brains function, and how we come to believe certain things and not other things, all that. And repetition is a big part of it, right? You might hear some crazy misinformation once, and it might go in one ear and out the other, But when you hear it repeated over and over, that becomes very powerful, and it anchors itself into your thought process. And that's what we see, I think, in America with propaganda, right? You don't just hear it once, you hear it over,
you hear it over and over.
And after a while, you're naturally, unless you're guarding yourself from that, and I like to think I guard myself from that, because I know that that's, something I got to watch for. How many times do I hear the story before I actually find out if it's true? And if I hear it so many times, I will start thinking it's true. It's kind of natural, right? It's kind of something we naturally do.
And repetition in the storytelling and repetition in falsities is something that's been talked about a long time. But what's been more recently studied is the subject of shock theory. Like the idea that the more shocking it is, the more that you think about the subject and the more that you're likely to hold the thing as true. I know this sounds very counterintuitive, but if you think about just the idea that we thought that we had, men had one less rib, right? That was something that when you hear it as a child and you're like, wait, men have one less rib than it's one of those, wow, I can't believe that. Yeah. And then it's because of the shockingness of the claim that then it seats, right? So a lot of it is like when you think about these QAnons and you think about some of these what's the pizza one, Pizzagate, right? Kind of claims, some of these things that are meant to cause shock and awe, right? It is because of that they're becoming more memorable and that they're seating better. Whereas most of us, when we think about what's true or not, we say if it sounds irregular, if it sounds strange, if it sounds out of place, then it probably is, right? If it quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck.
Yeah. And the other thing today in our culture, in our time, is algorithms, right? How that impacts what we hear, what we see, all right? And algorithms, at least the YouTube algorithm is not built based on reality at all.
Yeah.
It's built on this data that a machine, because the algorithm is a machine, it's not a human being, all right? it's made and set up by humans, right? But once it's there, it's a machine. All right. And that machine is deciding within seconds of seeing a video whether it's going to kind of release it out there. And it's not doing it based on truthfulness or any of that. It's doing it based on these other criteria. And truthfulness has kind of left the building, in my opinion, you know, in America.
Yeah, it is. But you know, some of this is not just like the machine of algorithms too. Some of it is like rhetorical ideology. And I'll give you a primary example. You see this a lot now on the right, that is no one's place to regulate, you know, what truth is, right? That everybody should have the freedom of speech. And it's kind of a defense mechanism against holding people accountable for telling false information, right? So it's like, well, you just let all the information go out and let the people decide, right? But then there's no levers of accountability, whether the information is true or not true. And they very much don't want there to be any levers of accountability. They want to be like, throw everything at the wall and whatever sticks, as if this is what fucking reality is, right? Whatever sticks. And that you're seeing this now going on in a little bit of political rhetoric.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what we're watching politically is an example of everything we're talking about. You know, the idea that perception is reality, you know, this is political junk we hear every day. I mean, and that we're exposed to. And I, you know, being a skeptic, and I'm trying to expose some of this stuff, all right, so that some people might come to critically analyze things rather than just believe things, right? And it's a difficult battle when what people are seeing, for the most part, is not even true. You know, it's very difficult because you're fighting this battle with ideas that are irrational, right? They're not logical, they're irrational. They might not have any basis in reality. And yet people just buy it and they love it. They consume it.
Yeah.
And it becomes part of them and who they are. And that, to me, is the battle that we're facing today. You know,
what's weird is like some of the things, and you can see that, you like with the rib, for an example, that is one of the ones that is easily, like, there's a physical way, or the Bible verse that actually doesn't say that or says something to the contradictory. You can go back and you can see that, like, wasn't the case that there. So you can see there's a contrast between the propagated story and then like an original object, whether it's the ribs or whether it's the biblical text, right? You can see that these are two contrasting things. Whereas there's another category that you can't see that, or it's more difficult to see. I'll give you a primary example is evolution, right? So when you get people who say, well, that evolution wasn't true, and they give these bad logical arguments like, you know, if we come from monkeys, why are there still monkeys, or things like this, to try to subvert it. But it's not like there's an easy physical way that we can show it that's wrong. It's not like you can say, well, of course everybody has the same amount of ribs, and you can show a skeleton, right? And you could show, okay, there's the same exact amount of ribs. Or you can say, yeah, there's actually not an apple in the Garden of Eden, and you can show the text and whatnot, and there's not, right? In that sense, you can show that information was incorrect. But a lot of times the information that they're spread, it's a lot more nuanced than that. And it gets into authority. It gets into just to a big body of evidence and information that they don't want to weed through and figure out what's the difference between false information and, you know, correct information. And this is where politics, it thrives on misinformation.
Yeah. And I think it thrives because people, I mean, I'm talking generally, right? I'm not making an absolute statement, but generally people don't really have the time to research a subject, right? they're busy running their lives, doing their jobs, feeding their children, etc.
Sure.
Right? So they're not really getting into a thorough research of a subject. Right?
Yeah.
Old people like me who don't go to work anymore, maybe I have more time, right? So I'm going to get into a subject to try to figure it out more. But most people don't, and they just kind of go with what they hear over and over again. And part of that is these echo chambers that are caused by algorithms. I mean, that's the way I'm seeing it. It's like I've been studying the YouTube algorithm for like 2 years. Right? And, this is a way that people get conditioned. It just is, if you have a channel, I look at your channel, but let's be real. I'm being honest with you. All right. And you could just take this for what it is, but you're a smart guy, and you have content that's intelligent. It's based on reality, and it's analyzing certain things that are deeper subjects. And yet the algorithm is not going to do anything with you, okay? Because you're not giving it exactly what it wants in order to actually, so the algorithm, which is a machine, is not looking at your content, whether it's smart, whether it's good, not even that. It's not looking at whether it's good. It's literally data driven in a way that only benefits the platform. That's it.
Sure.
And that's part of the misinformation problem in the world today, because we get a lot of information from the YouTubes and the, Facebooks, and, the way we consume information is changing. And, if it's controlled in a way where the good, true information doesn't really get out there, it's a problem. It's a real problem, I think.
Yeah, now we've made capital drive the primary motivator of information, and it's whether the information is going to keep people on long enough that they can sell advertisements. So this is why, like, sensationalism sells. Sensationalism, it could be correct information or incorrect information. It doesn't really matter. All that it needs to be is sensational information or sensational output. Whether it's somebody angry. So maybe me and you we could do these angry faces and we could argue with one another. I'm so frustrated with you, right? And this kind of thing, this is what drives. And from the YouTube side of things, or from, I don't want to pick on just YouTube, but from that social media side of it, they're trying to sell X amount of hours of advertising that they can overlay, right? So the amount of advertising that they can sell inside of a day is what's driving their profit. And if they can't get people to stay on these videos and watch these videos long enough, then that determines whether they want to reward those videos or whether they want to cut those videos. And the truth is, people can produce bull crap constantly. And just by the nature of it being so entertaining, even if like many atheists go to theist pages that are some of the worst arguing theists that there are, right? They're just absolutely horrible arguments. And we just watch there in amazement like it's a dancing monkey, right? And we just sit there and watch it. But by virtue of us wanting to watch these things, that is being rewarded by the algorithm. That's all that the marketers, that's all that they care about.
Well, look at the two very big topics that are real niches. They call them niches, these little, pockets that are on the internet. But two of the most popular ones that are easier, let's say, to grow in are fitness and beauty, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with fitness and beauty, but those are not really the intellectual stuff. I mean, that's not really stuff that's going to change the world, or try to help people become more rational and more thoughtful. Fitness and beauty, isn't it kind of shallow?
It's extraordinarily shallow, but that's what people want, an outer projection of themselves. That's a big thing, how they're seen. So subsequently, it's a big driver. but also I'll say this of it too. It's void of information though, Lou. So as far as the corruption of information, it's not a net positive or a net negative, because it's not giving information that's a true or false, unless I guess you're dealing with some of these health things that you have some of these health claims that
some of them are crazy,
that are pseudoscientific nonsense as far as, medications or selling water with X amount of parts per million in the water. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. See, a guy, one of our friends here just wrote, clickbait gets a lot of, activity. Yeah, and it does. I mean, that's a big part of the whole thing. It's like, it gets frustrating. Like I'm sure you probably getting frustrated. I know I've been frustrated many times on my YouTube thing, because
no, I accept it. I understand it's a part of the system. It's what we're coming into.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's a shame is kind of it. I mean, I think it's
that
a shame.
It is.
And I think that it dumbs down the public,
that it does,
because it's not like, when you're being recommended something or fed something, you're not making that choice really. This platform is saying that person wants to see this, so I'm going to feed them this, and it doesn't care if it's true or false. And that's the misinformation part. It's like, it's basically saying that, and it's a machine, so it doesn't talk, but it's basically driven by showing people information that they want to see.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if they want to see things that are fake, they're going to see them all day long. Things that are fake. All right.
Yeah.
Because the algorithm is good at picking up at what a person wants to see.
Sure. But that's the goal. That's the goal, is maximum viewer hours. It's not about information. So that's why if people are getting their information and they think like they know what reality is based on this type of platform, please, you don't know what reality is. If this is the platform that you're gaining it from. I encourage people to read more books, especially some of the older books and books on philosophy and things like this, because if all of your reality is coming from platforms that are rewarded for keeping you on here, then your reality is completely distorted. It just
is. And that's a form of misinformation, right? And it's a form of mind control, even if it's not meant to be, even if that's not the intention. But it still ends up having that outcome,
Yeah. So let me tell you what I think's interesting on the algorithm side is there's some kind of social context that's happening that I don't really know how to explain it, but I'll try to. A lot of the videos that you're seeing now will have thumbnails with women in either a provocative position, or you'll have a lot of cleavage, or you'll have a very quick still image that's like locked, that is appealing to a 14-year-old boy that's, playing around on a computer or clicking all the time. Right. Oh, look at this. And that image, whether it's an anime shot that's frozen at just the right angle or whatever, that is what is driving a large market. And I specifically mentioned like a 14-year-old boy clicking on that. Well, now those images are being selected by the AI database as something that will be getting more clicks, right? The images that have this. So now you have AI models and stuff with these overlords like YouTube and Facebook overlords, right? That are managing the AI systems to try to identify these thumbnails that will get more attention, and it's leaning heavily in a direction of provocative positioning, whether you're seeing a lot of cleavage or you're seeing whatever in the thumbnails. But what's crazy is now what's being dictated as what everybody wants to watch is like these 14-year-old boys or little girls and whatnot that are spending all this time on YouTube, and this is what's dictating it.
Yes. I mean, I've been getting into this a lot, so I've been doing a lot of research on that, and I'll give you a quick story about that with what these algorithms really do and mean, right? I put a short up yesterday. I made a short. Now I'm improving my thumbnails. I'm doing a lot of work on this stuff, right? And I'm doing a lot of work on titles because this becomes like a big factor, right? And I put out a short and it did nothing. I was like,
Yeah.
And most of my shorts are okay. They'll get 1,000. And I got a lot of subscribers, and subscribers don't matter that much. It's just like, but I think, a lot of subscribers, almost 5,700 or so, right? So I put out shorts and typically they'll get 1,000 views. I don't know who these people are. I don't know if it matters that much, but I'll get 1,000 views. So I made a short and I'm like, this is a pretty good short. I put it out. It gets like nothing. And I'm thinking, why is it getting nothing? So I go back to something I learned about YouTube algorithm, specifically for shorts. And that is that the algorithm, the first half a second, even the first couple of frames on a short, really determines if that short's going to go anywhere. Okay. I mean, and that to me is nuts. It's like, what can you put in the first half a second, right?
Yeah.
So I changed it. All right. And I went in and I deleted it. I deleted what I had and I put in a tiny black box. All right. And I reposted it. And when I reposted it with the tiny black box that's there for half a second, so it's barely noticeable. It's like barely noticeable. That short is doing very well right now.
Really?
And all I changed was putting in a little black tiny box with a little wording. But it captured something in the first half a second, Interesting. And it's like, what kind of a nutty thing is this? I look at myself, what am I doing? I'm putting a little thing in there, and that's going to make a difference. And then when it does, I'm like, what in the world? What world do I live in that this matters?
Yeah. But to bring it all back to what we're talking about on this is we're talking about misinformation. And I can't help but think of this now. If there's a type of rhetorical way to explain what's going on, if you think about the monkey that we were talking about earlier, that he's sending out the false information because it's going to be pragmatic for the monkey, right? It's practical for the monkey. He's going to gain something out of giving a false signal. But if you imagine now what's happening is everyone is what they can see. Like if you're talking about the monkey and he's seeing what's pragmatic for him, everything that people even can see is got to be pragmatic for the one that is controlling the vision thereof. So everything that you're seeing now is you're only seeing that in as much and with the frequency that is most rewarding to those overlords of the viewing portal, right? So it seems now it's not just about the person that's putting the information out, right? Like the monkey that howls and lets the signal out. It's not just that it's beneficial to that monkey, right? It's now beneficial to whoever's allowing you to see the information to start with. And that's where the pragmatism is. So now they don't care if the information is true or false, only that it's most practical to them and that they make the most amount of revenue off of it. And this is a new layer of corruption of information. It is a whole new layer that we haven't seen before inside of society. It's new.
That's what really I think is real dangerous, is that it is something new in a way. I mean, misinformation is not new, but the way it's being put out there is devastating in a way at this point in time. It's and then people seem to want only to support their own preconceived ideas. That's to me fundamental in religion, right? It's foundational in religion, right? But it's also part of the political world. Like I'm thinking some of the stuff I've seen recently. I saw Alex Preddy get shot 8, 9 times, 10 times in the back while laying on the ground. And somehow people don't see that. Now, a lot of people do. I'm not saying all people, but there's a section of people who will not see that for what it is, but they wait to get their view of what they're watching from some authority.
Yeah.
You know, so then the
Sure.
authority says, well, what you saw was a very dangerous man who, you know, was doing some terrible act and he had to be stopped. And they frame it that way. And there's a good section of people today that will just run with that. They don't even
Yeah.
believe their eyes anymore. You know?
No. Yeah, and I've compared it before to you're waiting for your information to be chewed up by mama bird and spit in your mouth. So you can't take the information directly. You can't look at it and form your own opinions of it. It's got to be chewed up through the mouth of Fox News, or dare I say, you know, and then it'll be hand, you know, put into your mouth, and then oh now I understand it in, you know, in this lens and inside of this rhetorical narrative.
And isn't it the same way, you know, well, I got to go ask pastor.
Yeah, it's the same
Well,
thing.
we
It's the
gotta
same
ask him
thing.
what happened.
Right.
I can't watch it and form my own conclusion. I got to ask pastor what happened.
Well, that's the safe way of saying I don't want to adjust my worldviews too much or give any room for my worldviews to change. So you apply your biases and then you're diving in, as Rational Warrior said. I'm trying to think of the name of the song, but to some degree, a lot of us do that with information intake. You apply your own biases to the information, and to the degree we were talking about this earlier, like you read information, and once information aligns with what your bias is, that's it. Okay, I'll take that information, and that's all you need. You don't allow information to adjust your worldview or change the way that you're seeing things, you know. And that's the mindset.
No, I don't remember it quite being like that. You know, I mean, I think it's gotten worse, you know, like.
Yeah. In the political apparatus, I would agree. It's gotten extraordinarily worse, and I don't really know how we recover, to be quite honest. Inside of the religious apparatus, though, this has been going on for a long time. We've hand waved it away because as long as we have the freedom of our own individual autonomy and religion, people can believe all of these ridiculous things, and we never really felt challenged. And I think the reason that we're upset with this inside of the political apparatus is now that people can believe, oh, the election was stolen, right? They can believe these things, and for patently absurd reasons. And then that will begin to affect our politics and our laws and everything like that. It's now being affected. It's not like just some Joe Smo believes that we have more or less ribs than we're supposed to. It's something that's coming home, and that's the difference in politics.
Yeah, like the Earth is flat. You know, that would be like, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? If someone wants to believe that. Okay, right, but it doesn't really impact me. Right? It doesn't.
Right. Well, we've hand waved that away for a long time because it's not really impacting us. But I can see, just like when you have people that jump on the bandwagon of the narrative of like JFK conspiracies or other things, that you get this from political characters. They're like, I'm the one that's going to let all this information out. I'm the one that's going to, you know, tell the truth about chemtrails or whatever Alex Jones kind of nonsense. You know, I'm the one that's going to reveal all this information. And then they're getting voted on for that. I could see, as more and more people begin to believe this flat earthers nonsense, that we see political characters starting to pay attention to this and saying, oh I need to step up to the plate and grab that crew. And right. Because now that's a large electorate, and now it's a very large electorate. Right. And as it's getting bigger, you're going to see that they're going to take control of those levers and start manipulating them.
Yeah. And it's the manipulation of people's minds that I'm trying my best to try to have people, guide people in any way I can to think for themselves. That doesn't mean becoming an atheist. It doesn't mean, you know, becoming or believing what I believe, but it does mean applying some sort of critical analysis to what you do choose to believe. You know what I'm saying? You know.
CFI, I think is the name of the group. There's a group. I'll have to find it. I'll pin it in this video. They're doing a program with a lot of schools where they're teaching kids to be critical of a specific, like a line item statement. So they'll go through and they'll let the kids read these newspaper articles that are making a different type of claim. One's like a factual claim and one's a rhetorical claim. And they try to get the kids to understand the difference between like a factual and accountable claim to a rhetorical claim. Like, so that they can understand when somebody is making a fact claim that is not, it's very specific and that it's very accountable to making that claim, opposed to something that is just rhetoric and people could back away from it saying, I was just, speaking rhetorically, right? And they want the children at a younger age to understand the difference in that vocabulary. And they want them to be able to identify it, and they're starting to teach them. And I think this is very important. So programs like this that are teaching people at a young age, because now we have whole generations that don't know the difference. They literally don't know the difference.
Yes, and I support your view on that, and I think it's very well needed. I support an education, or and obviously not an entire education, but just maybe specific curriculum that is required, that teaches some sort of critical analysis skills to children and teenagers and people in high school, because I think that would go a long way.
For sure. We have about 5 more minutes, so we're going to be opening up to Q&A and whatnot. Any particular thing you got going on you want to plug or tell anybody about?
No, I mean, I always invite people to come to my channel at Brooklyn Lou the Skeptic, and
and we got you pinned in there, and you're listed in the chat on the below. We're a little lower on viewers than we normally are on a Saturday, but it is Valentine's. Happy Valentine's, everybody! And down here, I don't know how far Mardi Gras has spread, but I'm in Louisiana, and I know a lot of the southern states are really picking up big in Mardi Gras right now. Louisiana, kids get off from school and stuff, so it's pretty big down here.
Yeah, and I don't see the chat. I'm just on Restream.
Oh, shoot. Well, your chat's on the side. You should be able to click on it. Plus, you have a private chat. The chat should be visible, though, to you if you click on the tab that says chat on the Restream.
Yes, I didn't click on it.
Yeah. So if you've been seeing that I've been putting that stuff up, what everybody's been saying. And then also there's a private chat if there was anything. I'm sorry, I messaged you that early, but you got on right there at the very end and we just kind of started rolling.
Yeah, now I'm seeing
through it.
Now
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. But excellent. Yeah. All right. Chat is open. Anybody has any Q&A questions? Anybody wants to come in, talk about misinformation, talking about your experience of misinformation in politics or religion, by all means, come on in. Yeah, I think while that's going, the link should be pinned. Anybody can come in. There's a few things that I wanted to mention from this article that I'd said I had attached with Eusebius. For you, those of you who don't know Eusebius was very influential with Constantine, and he was very influential in the early church. Constantine wanted him to write, I think, 50 canonical books where they had kind of the collection. This was the early versions of the Bible. Constantine wanted him to write 50 of them or commissioned 50 from him and a team to do this for Constantinople, that he had a bunch of churches in Constantinople that they wanted to resurrect and or that they wanted to make, and then spread all of these Bibles out, right? There was going to be a collection of the different books. Constantine was very influential on the canon and what was accepted and wasn't accepted as far as books of the Bible, and his position about needing to tell certain fairy tales, so to speak, that they were important, whether they were not true or not, it didn't matter. It was important that they shape young credulous minds with that information to determine how they come to certain goals and outcomes. But one of those in the article that I have posted there, that's from the Tertullian website, which you can read those translations. Towards the very end, it says these precautions also had been taken by Hebrews before Plato's time for those who had a divine spirit fit for discerning of spirits, approved what was rightly said or written when with help from the Holy Spirit. And the contrary they rejected, just as they rejected the words of the false prophets. Moreover, it was the custom of parents and nurses to soothe their infant children by citing the most edifying narratives from the divine scriptures, just like any fables, for the sake of preparing beforehand for the religion which they were to learn when approaching manhood. And I thought that was such an interesting thing that the nurses, the people that were in charge of taking care of the babies, the mothers and whatnot, they wanted specific stories and narratives to be taught, whether they're true or not. They're fables, but it's for edifying certain ideologies. And he was all for promoting that, all for it. And I think you'll see that a lot. You'll see that a lot in the early church writings.
There's a comment: neither Eusebius nor Constantine, the people who form the Christian church, are saints.
Yeah. And I think you had mentioned Eusebius. I don't know if it's the same text before, Kurt, that we're talking about President Lee. This is from book 12, from his book preceding the Gospels. But you get this from Eusebius a lot, but I mean, he's not the only one. Origen skirted around the subject a little bit, that it was okay. And we don't get anything directly from Paul that says that it's okay to lie, but we get things like, I've become all things to all people, that by some means I might win them into Christ, that I might save them. And you get some of this in, I think in 2 Corinthians, you get a similar verse that is like, he was being accused of lying, which you'll see a lot actually through Paul's writing. He's regularly getting accused of misrepresenting the truth. And he's like, well, but it was all into the glory of God. He doesn't outright say that he was lying, but it's all, into the glory of God. So this is something that you'll see a lot from early church thinkers. I think that's why many people were justified in writing all of the books that they wrote that were considered, what's the damn name of it? Pseudepigraphic.
Yes.
So,
pseudo,
so then
what, I don't even know how to pronounce that word. But
yeah, it's pseudepigraphic. But so then you had early church fathers that are going through and picking and choosing which ones. Oh, well, that one's not reliable. This one is reliable. But the problem is, if they're already thinking like Eusebius, are they picking and choosing which one is reliable based on what the story is, or based on like the formulation of whether they think certain people wrote it inside of certain time frames,
the usefulness of it,
right,
from a specific agenda,
right, for a specific agenda, exactly. So, and then you have things that don't like align. Like I'll give you a primary one. Jude mentions the book of Enoch in Jude, right? But the book of Enoch, while it had certain theological ideas in it that like might promote the Trinity or different things that they're okay with, it has other ideas inside of the book that like they can't theologically rectify. Subsequently, we're not going to put that book in, even though like Jude, that where it was added, talks about them and that they're as if they're totally valid doctrinally, right? So this is a little bit of the selective nature of, well, this doesn't align with what we want our message to be. So now you have a collection of books that are being selected, and these, some are pseudepigraphic, some are not, but do they serve our goal? Are they making the howl that the monkey wants to make to get the treasure at the bottom, so to speak?
I mean, everything you're describing, I see as, very religious type thinking. Yeah. The ends justify the means.
Sure.
Right?
That's the end.
That's like fundamental to what I'm seeing in America. It's like it seems like a lot of people think you can do unethical things as long as they're accomplishing something, a greater goal that you have.
Yeah. Well, and that's the hand waving away that I was talking about earlier, that when you see this in politics, when they say, well, yes, we know, we can see for a fact that our candidate was lying blatantly in this case, but others lie too. Therefore, and now that it's this, the means justify the ends, because not only is this corruption of our political character, is he corrupted, and we know that he is, but all the other ones are too, and ours have better goals, right? We have better goals that want to be accomplished. So it's hand waving a way that it's totally okay.
Oh, I see that all the time. People think there's two outlaw bad parties.
Yeah.
And well, I like this party because it's going to accomplish what I want.
Yeah.
Right. Even though I can readily say, that it's definitely not ethical. But how far have we come? That's what we're doing now.
Yeah, well, the problem is when you have an information output source that you can select what your information output is, and the two don't have to be pushed together in a single stream that is competing information. Like when we had these kind of fair time acts, what happens is you're getting information. If you think back that when we only had 5 or 6 news channels, right? And everything's coming from here, and you have a fair time act. And when they're putting out political ideas, they have to have an interlocutor of some sort, or somebody that is competing with their ideas. So then what you're getting is you're not getting unchallenged ideas. You're getting information from one source, one conduit, and that is competing ideology that you kind of get the truth between the two. But now you can just pick which hose you want. Oh, forget that. I don't get any from that hose of information at all. Now I'll only just pipe it straight in what I want to believe, right? So now you're getting your ideology just reinforced continuously. This is going to lead to the outcome that we're seeing. It's going to lead to bad outcomes. There's no way that it can't.
Isn't that like, lazy type of way to approach, thought? Like it's very lazy. It's like, I think a lot of, and I pick on religion all the time, but I think religious thought is often lazy. It's like,
oh yeah.
It's like, well, I believe it because it's what I was taught since I'm little. And, I was indoctrinated. They don't like the word indoctrination, but, it's what I think. I'm comfortable with it. And, I'm not going to go deeper. I'm not going to go to the bottom and to try to find out what is true. I'm just going to accept it because it's too uncomfortable to, think of anything.
Yeah. Some of it's some psychology. A lot of it is that. Lou. But I don't want to write it off, because I think that when things don't have an explanation that is seated inside of an agency, there's always this deeper layer of causation that you can go. So when you say something, for example, I'll give you a prime example. The sky is blue, but why is the sky blue, right? But if you couch this in agency and you say, well, because God likes blue. Okay, now everything goes into the ununderstandable agency of consciousness, and that there's this conscious being and he likes this thing. And now this is satisfactory because we have a satisfactory explanation in that an agency, some entity, wants that as the outcome, and therefore it is the outcome. Whereas if we go into, well, this is a problem with how we see how we see that there's a light spectrum, that this is all about frequency, that the eyes are conditioned in a certain way, and you can go further and further all the way down to the perceptual side of how do our cones work? How is that information being translated by the cognition? And this is why we're seeing blue. Yeah, but why is it that and not another way? And like nothing's you don't reach a bottom of satisfaction that bottoms out in something like when you get agency, you get, oh, well, there's an acting agent, and there's just something that seems more intuitively satisfactory for an explanation. This is why I think a lot of times we do this with agency. We end everything at agency.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you something. I've been having this long online debate discussion with a Christian guy, and he's certainly, I think he's a nice guy. Seems like a nice guy, but we're at a point where he is saying that it's rational to think that a man died, rose from the dead, went up into the sky, and is now a god controlling the universe. And he says that's a perfectly rational thing to think. And I'm saying that is totally not rational. Now, am I crazy, or is that not rational?
Well, it runs through a lot of rational roadblocks is the problem. It's like, firstly, why would he have to come down to die to start with? Then you have all this, you have the problem of, you have the agency that has these standards that somebody had to die, that he could have changed, by the way. The agent in charge could have changed the standard at any point and said, okay, forgiven, nobody has to die to do it, right? That's something that agent wanted that to be the standard, and then that he had to meet a standard that he could have easily just changed and said, nah, don't worry about it. You know, so there's all these like logical roadblocks that you have to run through to get to this being the conclusion, clearly.
Yeah. But I tell you, it's frustrating. It's frustrating having these debates with people, you know. And again, I like to respect all people and what they believe. My goal for my channel, one of my goals, is just to get people to maybe understand that there are things that we believe that may not necessarily be true, but we could still believe them, right? I mean, yeah. But when we make these, I very rarely encounter a Christian who tells me, yeah, I believe this, but no, I don't know for sure. Like I don't.
I see it from time to time, but I think you're right. More often than not, they believe it, and it's a thing of faith, and then they'll even start doing justification as to that it's okay to believe a thing that we can't know to be true, and then they do the justification of, well, you have faith that chair will hold you up, and things like this. They start going into this whole, rather than admitting that yes, they hold certain things to be true, but yes, that they can't know that thing's true. You know, because that seems like, yeah, I hold this to be the case, and then they would wind up undercutting it. I think Kurt put a very interesting one on here that said, "Did Jesus's eyelashes mites go with him to heaven?" It's a very funny question, and I like the question even better when Jesus woke up after 3 days in the tomb. How many flies were present? Right, the idea that Jesus wakes up in there in the tomb, and how many flies do we have that are eating on his body that he has to repel and say, "Hey, get out of here, get out of here," you know? Yeah, but yeah, the mites going into heaven, or his gut biome, or any of these other things for that matter. It's very interesting.
But how do we get to the point? This is the stuff that keeps me up at night. How do we get to the point where just believing something becomes reality to you? I mean, I don't do that. I mean, I could say, well, I believe that, but I'm really not sure, you know. Yeah. But it's like a lot of people don't like the not sure thing. Right?
Yeah.
They would, you know, well, you have to be sure. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a distinction. When you come away from religious certainty, you have to know that you're now operating in a space where certainty is disappearing, and that there are things that you can know and there's things that you can't know, and that you just got to be comfortable with that. So that's a little bit of difference. Then that's a part of the deconversion thing too, that you're going to have to admit at some point that there's just things that you can't know.
Right.
But guest, anybody wants to come up, where I can have up to 6 people on here if y'all want to talk. This is low numbers. Those of you who are more shy and don't want to show your face a lot or don't want to come talk, this might be a good time. We're sitting here at like 9 or 10 people. Here's all we got. Let's see. Yeah. So anybody wants to come up, say anything, by all means, jump in. The link should be in the description, should be pinned. Yeah.
You keep saying Kurt. I'm seeing @Allen. Is that Kurt?
Yeah, that's Kurt. Everybody knows him as Kurt. I'm trying to find out what's going on here on the pinned. Oop, didn't mean to do that. That's all good.
Is that happen to be the same Kurt that I see debating on Breakfast Tacos show?
No, that's totally different Kurt.
Different guy?
No, I'm picking with you. No, that's the same Kurt.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen, but he doesn't, I don't think he's on there as Allen, I think. But
no.
Someone named Kurt, I've heard him talk.
Yeah, that's him. That's
Yeah.
him. He's been on there a few times. Very intelligent individual.
Yes.
He's been messing with debates for a minute. He's also a doctor, and I don't know his schedule, but he's a cool guy. He's been on here on the show several times. I appreciate him stopping in.
Yeah, I've seen him on the mega bloodbaths.
Yeah. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get into the debate side of it as much, and maybe I should a little more. I guess I'd like to have the conversation without multiple different ones. I don't mind having some different theist or deist on, and I've had one or two, but I'd like to get more on. Ideally, I'd like to have pastors come on here and conversate with me. That would be ideal. And I know you've had one or two pastors on your channel that you've talked to.
I invited. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. So whenever I invite people in, I generally let them pick their own subject, anything that's pertinent to it. I don't do the deconversion story stuff. I think there's better channels out there for deconversion, but anybody can pick what subjects. So if anybody does have a subject that you want to talk about, I think James Apperson is hopefully fixing to be here next Saturday. He's was fixing to pick his final thing on what he wanted to talk about next Saturday. And then we're going to have Mighty Filbert here. Will be on the following Saturday.
Mighty Filbert. Yeah, I've seen him around.
Yeah.
And James Apperson. I'm just going to say this because it's funny you mentioned him.
Yeah.
I hang out on YouTube a lot because I'm an old man and I don't have much else to do, right? So when I was seeing James Apperson yesterday live, and he had a live, and I just had it running, on my screen while I was doing some other stuff. But he was talking about ending his channel.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of that stream. Yeah, I don't know what place he's in right now, but I tell you this, to every YouTuber, I think it's a lot easier to grow and a lot easier to get attention, even from the algorithm that we were talking about, if you show your face more. I don't think it's a guaranteed, but I find when I go to a lot of these channels that don't have an actual person talking on there and they just have that little icon, that little avatar, they're not getting a lot of traffic. So I decided very early on in this that I'm not going to do that. I have to have a face on screen, and I prefer it. And while I don't, it's not necessary to be to have an interview and to be on here. I think it's huge for the algorithm. So I think that's something that anybody that's pursuing this, you might want to think about it, getting a good camera and actually being on screen.
Oh yeah, I decided to be on screen when I started doing this. You're just using my cell phone, because I don't even, with that, I don't really care about the algorithm. I just feel it's important to be human and to communicate with other human beings,
Certainly.
And I think it means something. And when you're making those thumbnails, it does matter. The thumbnails with your human face on it do well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
But open chat, Q&A, anybody, questions, thoughts, saying hey, anything at all, put it in the chat over there.
Yeah, Kurt got hotel Wi-Fi.
Yeah, he's been in a hotel from time to time. I've seen him poking. He was running through a hotel or something. I don't know what all. He must travel around a little bit for his. And I've seen him in a hotel from time to time. And he had some really bad internet one time that he poked in here before, and it's at a hotel.
Yeah.
Anyway, if we're not going to get any more interaction, then we might wrap it up a little early, Lou. If you got anything that you want to talk about or any other subjects we want to get into.
No, I'm just happy to come on with you, Rob.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And we'll have to have you on again sometime. But I got to get some better communication with you, though, somewhere. I was concerned when we were getting up to that last-minute buzzer that we weren't going to see you.
No, I won't. I mean, unless an actual emergency happened, I'm not going to leave anybody hanging.
Yeah. And I started thinking about it whenever it was happening. I was like, I need backup plans, man. I really need backup plans. I schedule somebody for a Saturday, and I could probably fumble through, and I might pick some subjects that I have written down, and I'll ramble on for a little bit and then just turn it into an open chat. But that's about where I'm at on the subject. If somebody doesn't poke in, but I need to start getting some backup folks that might be able to come in and chat with me if I do get anybody that falls through. But I do appreciate you coming on here. We're going to wrap it up a little early, and then next Saturday we're going to have James Apperson, and then after that we'll have Mighty Filbert in here talking about some interesting subjects. So stay tuned.